It's raining mice in Australia, literally, and I'm not making this up or reading it out from a Murakami. Millions of mice have infested Australia and they're everywhere: houses, garages, water tanks, under the beds. Mice are also crawling into beds and biting people. Those living in Australia and Australian cities are patching up holes in their homes and sealing the doors. In the rural areas, farmers are losing their harvest. The government has declared a war on the tailed army and announced a package worth $50 million. Our next report brings you the battle plan.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode with Mr. Smith, your humble, hopefully humble servant. And today's little expose, lesson, essay, whatever you want to call it, is on this plague of mice that is afflicting Australia in recent weeks. Unbelievable. I heard it's so bad that they can't get rid of them, no matter what they try. And it's the worst they've ever had. They say that Australia has suffered plagues of mice since the 1980s. I find it interesting that not before that. Just something to think about. I don't think mice normally behave this way. I think, and I'm going to make the suggestion that this is divinely inspired, this plague of mice. So let's watch a little further, shall we?
Imagine this. You open a cupboard and out jump some mice. You go to your kitchen and there are mice everywhere. Sounds like a horror movie or a nightmare? Welcome to Australia. Here, it's a reality. There is mouse plague down under.
Okay, anybody want to comment on this? What you just saw? This is not natural, normal behavior of mice. Okay, they don't just run around like crazy like that. I had some mice in my place one time. It was just two of them. They were the cutest little things, and they went from one hole to another. They got the heck out of there. They weren't just running around like a bunch of crazy people. So this is something special.
And it looks something like this. Disgusted already? Watch this. It's raining mice.
I bet some of you thought I was going to start singing, "It's raining men." No. Oh, wait a minute, I just did. Darn it. But again, does that look like normal behavior of mice? You know, science might try to say, or nature folks might try to say that this is a 10-year cycle of mice. They just do this. It's their natural way of behaving every 10 years or so. No. Wrong. No. This is not normal behavior. These mice are crazy.
Quite literally. They are inside houses, on the walls, on the roofs, inside containers. They are everywhere, dead and alive. How do you sleep in a situation like this? You don't, says Australian farmer Cody Brady.
Yeah, I don't sleep because I'm paranoid. You know, you can hear them in your walls and your roof, and so yeah, just your social and emotional well-being is shot, and you're absolutely buggered.
What triggered this mice apocalypse?
Could it be the Most High God? Possibly.
To answer that, we must rewind to 2020, a year most of us would rather forget. But for Australian farmers, it was a good year, a year of rain. It rained more than the 2 previous years combined. The ground became fertile. and there was a bumper harvest. But no one saw the mice coming. The rain brought them by creating an ideal condition for the little rodents. Once they had a sizable army, the mice went straight for the harvest.
Oh, that's rich. So the mice waited until they had a sizable army and then just went absolutely crazy on the crops and everything because it was time, because it was all wet from the rain. Yeah, that's a pretty weak argument or what explanation. The other thing is in 2020, right, there was a scary thing, right, particle that starts with a V that we all had to start wearing face coverings for, and supposedly it was mass destruction, but the mice didn't seem to be affected. They were strengthened by that scary particle that starts with a V.
The wheat, the barley, they infested it all. They also attacked hotels, food marts and bakeries, childcare centers, and made no exception for old age homes.
So let me get this straight. The wonderful rains they had in 2020 caused the mice to amass an army and then just go crazy on crops. And then they didn't want to stop there, so they went into the old age homes. That's the reason, because of the rain, the old age homes, the schools. Yeah, what are they going to find in the old age homes? Viagra? Oh my gosh. No. They don't know why these mice are doing this. They don't have a good explanation. But I got one. We'll get to that in a minute.
As early as March, photos like these made their way to the headlines. A local farmer said, at night the ground is moving with thousands and thousands of mice just running around. That was just a warm-up for a cross-country race. 2 months on, the mice army has breached borders. It has infested an area stretching over 1,000 kilometers. From Adelaide to Brisbane, via Melbourne and Sydney. The mice are chewing crops, electrical wires, machines, even biting patients in hospitals. And then there is the smell.
Yeah, so the great rains they had in 2020, that's the reason why they're gnawing on wires and biting people. Woo! Pretty weak.
The smell is rotten. Like, the live smell of a mice is, terrible, but, the dead smell's, 10 times worse.
So what is Australia doing about the tailed army? It has declared a war. Houses have been fortified. There are strategies in place and traps are being laid. Australian authorities have announced a mouse plague package worth $50 million. The money will be used to bait and poison the mice army. People living in cities have been told to use steel wool to patch up holes in their homes. Also seal their doors.
So my house is absolutely sealed, like a submarine. Like, I've got rubber around my doorways and underneath. I've got about 15 bait stations, and I spend at least an hour every morning and every night picking up dead mice,
But how many of these creatures do you kill? If one pair of mice manages to get away, by the end of the season, you will have 250 others. Australia knows this. It is no stranger to plagues. Mice have terrorized the country through the 80s, 90s, and as recently as 2011. But some farmers say this is the worst they have seen.
In the 80s, 90s, and up to 2011, but this is the worst plague that they've ever seen. So no plagues of mice before the 1980s, huh? Interesting. Fascinating.
Pledging our support for Australia. Bureau Report. We are world is one.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.
Yeah, I'll download the app right after this. Get right on that. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? I'll tell you what I think. Let me read this scripture here in 1 Samuel 6, 4 and 5. And it says, "Then said they, What shall be the trespass offering which we shall return to him? They answered, 5 golden emerods and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For one plague was on you all and to your lords. Wherefore ye shall make images of your emerods and images of your mice that mar the land. And ye shall give glory unto the Most High of Israel. Peradventure he will lighten his hand from off you, and from off your gods, and from off your land." Okay, so let me set the stage here. Okay, we're talking about the Philistines, which had the Most High God's ark. They weren't supposed to have that. They were being very, very wicked people. Right? The Philistines were dealing with genetic manipulation and all kinds of debauchery. And so the Most High punished them with a plague of emerods and mice. That's what this is talking about. Emerods are like tumors, sores, cancer, sicknesses. What do we have today? Everybody's sick. And of course, mice. So the scriptures I read, the Philistines were trying to figure out a way to lighten his hand from off them, right? Which means have the Most High God take away the plagues and relax his punishment against them. That's what that means. And from the Philistine gods, they worshipped fallen angels, right? Like Lucifer. So they figured they would make golden images of the tumors, the emerods, and of the mice that marred their land. So the Most High God did send a plague of mice on the Philistines. So I'm suggesting that that's what is happening to Australia. This is a divinely inspired plague. Now, we know that Australia is one of the countries leading the way in this medical martial law, this oppression of men. They also, to my understanding, allegedly are oppressing the indigenous people over there. Right? They are part of the Western world that I talked about in the Lil Tay video I did recently. Allegedly, the Australians are just as morally bankrupt as any other Western country. So this might be, I believe it to be so, that this is a plague of mice sent by the Most High to show the people of Australia his power and what he can do. And they can't stop it, right? And you saw in this video, they had no good explanation why these mice are doing this. And they don't seem to be able to stop them. A friend of mine, when he was in Egypt, he told me that in modern Egypt, they have camel dung heaps to keep the flies away from the restaurants. Right? What was one of the plagues that the Most High sent, according to the scriptures, onto Egypt, because Egypt was being, and the Pharaoh was being very oppressive to the Israelites. The Most High sent a plague of flies. And if you go to Egypt today, they still have a problem with flies. So, something to think about. Please like and subscribe. This is your humble servant, Mr. Smith. And we'll see you on the next one. All right, everybody have a blessed day.